And so now we'll take a look at the technology you can use to set up a professional work from home office.
Okay, sorry about that. This control doesn't seem to be working exactly as efficiently as I'd like. It seems to lag anyway. Ideally, you have the space in your house so that you can set up a dedicated office workspace. This is particularly important if you have spouses, children, living girlfriends or boyfriends, pets, or roommates. If you have to use a common area, you need to take particular care to make sure that you put all of your work-related materials away securely when you leave the space. Just because somebody is married to you or is your child doesn't mean that the confidentiality protections that exist with respect to clients are not breached by them looking at it. So you need to make sure that doesn't happen. The other thing that becomes incredibly important if you're working from home and doing any type of remote appearances is you will need to make sure that you have a completely reliable high-speed internet connection. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but it is generally better if you have a hardwired connection than a Wi-Fi connection because the same point of connection will give you as a faster speed if you have a hardwired connection than if you use Wi-Fi. That said, you can go ahead and use Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi certainly can give you a fast enough and a reliable connection. I will tell you that I have both Wi-Fi and hardwired connections to my computer and will bounce back and forth between both. Right now, I'm using a hardwired connection. Ashley, are you using hardwired or are you using Wi-Fi?
I use Wi-Fi.
All right, so there you go. You can see the two of them side by side, and they both seem to be working more or less the same. That usually is the case, but not always. Essential hardware that you need in order to work from home successfully. You need a computer that can be a desktop or a laptop. It can be Windows or it can be the Mac operating system. We recommend that you actually use a computer or a laptop as your primary piece of hardware rather than a tablet. Not to say you shouldn't have a tablet, not to say we don't like tablets. We have them, we like them, we use them all the time. But there are things you can do with a laptop and even more with a desktop working from home that will be easier for you and better for you, we think, if you use the computer rather than the tablet. You'll need a high quality webcam. Most computers these days come with reasonably decent quality webcams. The top line computers generally tend to come with better, more expensive, more reliable webcams. If you have a computer where you're not satisfied with the webcam, getting a third-party webcam and using that instead of, or sometimes alternating between that and the one that's built into your computer will work fine. Similarly with microphones, most of your better computers these days come with decent microphones, but there are much better microphones that are available out there if you want to move up in quality. Lighting is something your computer doesn't provide. Laptop, desktop, tablet, none of them provide lighting for you. That is an outside thing that you need to address, and you need to pay some attention to it. Lighting can make you look very bad, or it can make you look pretty good. And if you use improper lighting, you will end up looking potentially nowhere near as appealing as you might look if you use proper lighting. Lighting can be natural, but we like to augment natural with artificial to make sure that we get the balance and the color temperature that we think works best. We've talked about the reliable high-speed internet. You may have heard the terms router and modem and gateway. A router basically is what sets up a Wi-Fi network. A modem basically is what connects you to your provider's internet link, and the gateway, which you don't see on the slide, but is another piece of hardware that is in that same category, is a combination router and modem. So it serves both purposes. Lots of internet providers like For example, Xfinity will provide you with a gateway that takes care of both of those needs, at least to some extent. You can always add another router to your existing modem or to your gateway, which will give you some additional flexibility, possibly even better coverage. I have a setup in my house where I have Xfinity as my provider. They provide me with a gateway, which is adequate but not terribly great. And I've added an Eero mesh network, which gives me better coverage throughout the house than the network built into the gateway that comes from my provider. Whether or not you want to get an ergonomic desk and desk chair is an optional thing. We recommend it because if you're going to be sitting at a chair for a prolonged period of time and it's not ergonomic, particularly as you get older, you're likely to develop back pain, and you don't want to have that. And similarly, if you don't have an ergonomic desk, you can have the same problem even if you do have an ergonomic chair. Lots of people have recommended using standing desks as one of the ways to avoid that. I've tried that. I'm not really a big fan of it, but I know there are people who swear by it. You should think about it and see if that's the right thing for you. Another optional thing that I strongly recommend you have is a backup power supply. I strongly recommend it because I live up in the hills above Oakland, which is a very nice area that has lousy cellular service and often has power outages because it used to be a recreational area that got converted to a decent residential area about 50 or 75 years ago. When you have a power outage, it puts you out of business. And if you're in the middle of a presentation and you have a power outage, it really puts you out of business, because not only does it turn off your computer, it turns off your internet access. And that means you can't get on even with your laptop or using your cell phone during that outage. The best backup power supply, in my opinion, is if you get solar energy connected to your house and get a battery behind that, which is what I now have. I put that in during COVID because we had a 3-day power outage, which basically put me out of business. And I said, that's not going to happen again. It's not an inexpensive way to deal with the problem, but it deals with it effectively. Since I put in the battery, we have never had a problem where we've had a power outage that has stopped me from continuing to work. We have had a problem where the power outage put the ability to get Wi-Fi out of existence, and so I couldn't use my normal Wi-Fi, but I have my own backup cellular Wi-Fi system, which is slower, but it did keep me in business. You can get inexpensive backup supplies for in the range of $100, which will give you maybe an hour or so of backup. Those are available at Costco, on Amazon, and the like. So let's talk for a minute about the computer and the laptop. You want to have a relatively modern computer. The 8-year-old desktop that you have may work, but it isn't what you want to use. You should be using a processor with multiple cores, such as an Intel i7 or larger, or Apple's new M1 or M2 chips. In terms of RAM memory, we prefer that you have a minimum of 16 gigabytes. You can have more if you want, but that's just showing off. You can get by with 8, but we don't recommend it. In terms of display, we think you're going to be a lot happier with a full HD display, which is 1920 by 1080 pixels. And they have higher resolution monitors, which we like even better. But HD is pretty much the bottom line as far as our recommendation is concerned. You should consider the possibility of a second, and some people have a third display of more or less equivalent resolution. I use a second display. Ashley does too sometimes. We think the third display is kind of, like bragging. It's not really necessary for most people. There are some people for whom it is essential, but for most people, 2 should be fine. What I normally do is I put my work on one, and if I've got a video going on with respect to like a meeting such as this, I'll have the slide deck on one and I'll have the conference on the other, so that I can see both and I can work on both or without any issue at all. We recommend that if you get a monitor, it should be at least 24 inches. Larger is better, but 24 should be just fine. If you're working with a laptop, your monitor will be smaller. You can go with a monitor that's supplemental to the one that's built in to the laptop that is bigger, that you're just not restricted to a 15-inch monitor because you have a 15-inch display. So you can get a 24 or 27-inch monitor and plug most laptops into it. Dedicated graphic cards are not crucial, but a discrete graphics processing unit can help with rendering video and handling graphic demands in your program. Webcams, again, as I mentioned, most of the modern computers come with decent ones. If you want to upgrade, we are extremely partial to the Logitech line, and both of us use Logitech cameras. I'm using the Logitech Brio Ultra HD Pro, and Ashley's using, which are you using the 920 or the 922 now, Ashley?
I use the 920.
Okay, and the 920 is very good. It's full HD resolution. It's not very expensive. It's under $100, and even the Brio Ultra that I'm using is only about $150. So we're not talking about something that's going to break the bank, and it will make a big difference in the way you appear on the screen, which is more and more important as you start using the video for meetings and for court appearances. Microphones, again, I mentioned to you earlier that the ones that built into the computers are generally decent, but if you want to upgrade, and we recommend you do, our favorite is the Yeti microphone. It's a series of microphones actually from Blue Microphone. I use the original Yeti, which is much larger than some of the new ones, but it works very well. You're listening to it now. And the Yeti microphones are in the range of $100 each. Other very well thought of and very well built microphones are Audio-Technica's ATR 2100X and Shure's MV5. I'm not saying to you that these are the only microphones to get. I'm just saying that these are microphones that we are particularly impressed by. Lighting, as I mentioned, proper lighting is crucial for video conferencing and also for any kind of appearance at a hearing or at a mediation or an arbitration or a trial. And all of those things are happening both live and online. And I've done all of those things since COVID has started. The only thing I have not done online since COVID has started is a jury trial. There are two reasons for that. One, I haven't had a jury trial come up in my practice since COVID started. And two, I would be very leery of doing a jury trial online because I feel, and I'm old school and I admit it, but I feel that I get a closer relationship that I develop with my jury if I can look them in the face and I can look them in the eye and I could reach out and touch them than if they're on a screen. But in terms of artificial lighting that you get, and I'd be careful with natural lighting because natural lighting will change throughout the day, and what looks perfect in the morning won't in the afternoon. But if you augment it or replace it with artificial lighting, you can get pretty much exactly the lighting you want anytime, day or night. Various configurations of lights exist. The most common include ring lights, which are those round circular lights that you put the camera in the middle, whether it's an iPhone or a tablet or a Logitech, whatever, and it creates a glow around your face. They come in various sizes and they offer adjustable brightness levels. Some of the better ones also let you adjust the color temperature of the light, meaning warmer or colder, as well as the brightness. Some of them also will allow you to adjust the color beyond just the color temperature. Softbox lights, which is what you see on the screen, it uses a diffuser to produce a balanced lighting. LED panel lights are all commonly used. And you can get lots of lighting kits that will include often multiple light stands, diffusers, etc. We are particularly fond of those types of systems. We are particularly fond of the productions or the products made by LoomCube. The website is listed on the slide. And I particularly like, I don't want to speak for Ashley on this, their dual edge system for desktop use, which is what I'm using now. And there's a light on the left side of my desk and a light on the right side, so that if you look at the screen, you see a pretty balanced lighting condition everywhere. They have a similar structure for travel called the broadcast kit, which basically stands rather than on holders that are clamped to the desktop on what is more or less a tripod. High-speed internet we talked about. The recommended minimums for HD look a lot lower than what we're talking about, and they are. And in fact, you can make it work with lower. We just don't trust it for a variety of reasons. One, if there's a hiccup and it drops, it hasn't got far to drop before you have a problem. Two, if you are in a situation where the internet is being shared by multiple people, the more people who use it, the more demands that are on it, the slower it becomes and the more likely there'll be a problem. We strongly recommend that you go with gigabit internet, which is 1,000 megabytes per second. You can get by with less, you can find more, but gigabit seems to be pretty much the gold standard. I talked to you already about modems, routers, and gateways, so there's really nothing for me to add here. These are some examples of some high-speed gateways that we think are very reliable. The Netgear Nighthawk CAX80, the Aris Surfboard SBG 8300, and the Motorola MG7700. Those will change from time to time. You want to get something today that's at least Wi-Fi 5, better yet Wi-Fi 6, which is the newest and the greatest. Ergonomic desk chairs, lots of them out there. My personal favorite is the Herman Miller Aeron desk chair. The steel case gesture chair is also very good. I've been using a Herman Miller Aeron desk chair for 15 years or so, and I'm still sitting in the same one. They last forever. They're very, very adjustable, so that you can make it support you exactly the way your body feels like being supported. If you look, you'll see a diamond-shaped piece in the back of the chair. That piece is not decoration. That is an adjustable lumbar support, which I find to be wonderful. You can adjust the height. You can adjust the width and height of the armrests. It's pretty much, you can adjust anything you want on it. And it's very comfortable. Like I say, I've used it for years, and I strongly recommend it. We talked about backup power supplies. There's really nothing more to add to that, except that you will save potentially lots of time and lots of frustration and lots of productivity loss if you have a backup power supply. Before I turn this over to Ashley, I need to take a housekeeping break, because there is a technical requirement that we have to comply with to make the people who are licensed in New York, or to make their licensing authority happy. New York requires that programs taken online or on CD contain an embedded code number for New York attorneys to identify, and we are required to do that about halfway through, which is where we are. So in order to comply with New York regulations, there's a CLE credit that we're going to be issuing, a code that we're going to be issuing. The code is not intended for West Legal Ed Center audience, either live or on demand. It's only for attorneys who are licensed in New York and seeking credit in New York. The code number is HA 33182-102423. Again, let me read that a second time. Hotel Alpha 33182-102423. Okay, if you're from New York, make sure you've written that down. I'll give it to you a third time just to be sure. And you'll need to use that when you ask for credit for this course. Hotel Alpha 33182-102423. All right, Ashley, why don't you talk about some of the other essential tools in working from home?
Thanks, Jeff. All right, so some other things that you might find particularly helpful if you're working from home include things such as noise canceling headphones, both to maintain your concentration and confidentiality, especially if you are not living alone. If you have children, significant others, televisions going in the background, the noise canceling headphones can be a lot of help. You also want access to printers, scanners, and shredders. Now, you probably won't have an industrial office-sized printer on hand, but at least something that can multifunction, so it performs all of the tasks you need, but takes up less space. But those are some of the tools that you'll want to make sure you've got handy just to be able to function at home. The other, there's essential software that you will probably use when working from home. Hold on one moment. All right. So the essential software you need when you're working from home, look at video conferencing tools. This is going to be like your Zoom, your Microsoft Teams, Cisco's WebEx. All of these are platforms that you should be familiar with. And you should try to be familiar with all of them because you never know the person you're needing to communicate with, which platform they are going to use. Also, some of your courthouses and some of your CLE places will use proprietary software. So it's helpful to get an idea of what you'll be using ahead of your meetings so that way you don't have any hiccups. Adobe Acrobat Professional or their document cloud services is handy to have since we still make legal documents and send them back and forth. Microsoft 365. Your cybersecurity is still important, such as your antivirus, anti-malware, Norton, McAfee, and Malwarebytes. All of these are things you should be familiar and comfortable with to make sure your information stays secure. And as Jeff mentioned before, it's important to have a secure, reliable web browser, such as Google Chrome, Apple's Safari, Firefox, Microsoft Edge. Be comfortable with multiple because you never know when this platform or the software you're trying to use works better on a different web browser. But Chrome and Safari should pretty much cover all of your needs.
Yeah, before we move on, let me just interject one thing to build on what Ashley said. For reasons that I have never quite understood, there are people out there who think that if they put anti-malware software on their computer or antivirus software on their computer and never run it, it somehow protects them. That is not the case. You actually have to use the software in order to make sure that you're protected. Don't just put it on your computer and think it'll take care of itself. It won't. Sorry, Ashley, go ahead.
It's good information to have.